COVID is unknown still in my eyes, and you never know what could happen. So I think with COVID being a roller coaster, my emotions are up and down, up and down, up and down.
It was when I started doing COVID clinic, and like there was water fountains were covered up, because you don't want people like spreading their germs on the water fountains. And I was like, wow, like this is real. It was like water fountains were covered, and then there were little pieces of tape on the ground so people would be 6 feet apart. And I was like, this is like reshaping our world right now.
I was on spring break when we got the news that we would have another week of spring break, and then we never went back.
Those initial 2 weeks, I was like, okay, this is pretty nice. I could get used to this. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And it just kept getting longer and longer, and
The reality became more, how do you prepare your children for this? And that was more where we had to really explain to them how much we didn't know, and that we just had to trust the medical professionals that staying at home at this point was the best thing to do. Things that you were used to, things that were your comfort, were no longer there.
Because it's people in my community that are dying at a faster rate. These are people that are frontline workers. They're healthcare workers, they're CNAs. Their children are at home. So they're having to go out there every day in a war zone and hope that they're not going to come home and kill everybody in their house. That's basically where we're at.
I have to go home to my kid. And so I'm like, now I'm jeopardizing my kid. And then my husband works on the ferry. So now it's like, yeah, we're always in a public setting. I stepped away from my family for 2 months. I didn't talk to them, didn't really bother them. Finding out my whole family had COVID but us. And then while I was at work, we were only allowed to accept essential workers. We weren't allowed to accept any other guest. It sucked in a way because you have a lot of like employees from like the nursing and stuff coming in, and then they had to be quarantined, and then you have guests who are already quarantining because they did have COVID, and then you have people who are the essential workers, and they were going through their stuff, so they were drinking and masking their emotions, and so now we had to be there to support them, and so they end up coming at us. So I got threatened, he got put in jail over this whole thing.
After the lockdown, I began to notice like a drastic change in my mood. I didn't really have any desire to get up anymore because I didn't think there was a reason to. The days seemed shorter, but I tried to make the best of them with reading or just doing something productive.
At first it was good. I was like, oh yeah, I have all this time at home and I can do this and I can do that. And I was knocking out household projects and stuff like that. But then after a while, you run out of things to do and you lose your motivation. You're like, is this ever going to end? It kind of like got into this little mode of depression too, where I don't know what it is, just being shut in the house. It kind of made me a little depressed.
The first couple months, I really didn't, just stayed home all the time. I'd go to the ocean every day. I never had an uninterrupted routine where I was like, had like a more or less sleep schedule and exercise schedule and like cooking and eating at home schedule. So I think it's really pretty healthy. I really relied a lot on this community garden that's right down the street here. It's been a huge asset. I still deal with losing your kind of career, I guess. I don't want to complain, because a lot of people have it a lot worse, but I was just kind of so used to doing that, and that's like your kind of sense of worth, a sense of gratification, a sense of like reward, all of those things that were kind of built for me around playing music for other people. And when that disappeared, you lost that, and you all of a sudden have to be comfortable with nothing. Like just, okay, who am I really?
I have been in recovery for a long time. When you shut down churches and recovery centers, and there's a whole group of people that are all of a sudden left with nothing. And so I have friends who have they've relapsed. My husband has several friends who have overdosed, and one committed suicide. Like I said, isolation is their worst enemy, and they need those programs. They need those places to go.
Pre-COVID, I was already aware of like how hard it is for people to access resources to better their situation financially across all social determinants of health. And so then when COVID hit, we've moved the food pantry downstairs to the alley in the back for a drive-through. Our numbers went up, I think 70% in our food pantry. We all have gotten not burnt out, but very tired because we are essential. We're working a lot and we're seeing a lot of people and helping a lot of people.
There's a lot of uncertainty in COVID care, which is fine at the beginning and you have a tolerance for that. But then once you start having drugs and things that you think are going to work and they don't work, you're kind of like, oh man, this really is an unpredictable disease. And so that dysphoria of having an unpredictable disease that you know is unpredictable, and then charlatans out in the world preaching certainty. I was like, that's making our jobs harder on all these fronts.
Well, I had to do online school, so there was no structure. And at first I had a bit of free time, but progressively I've had like no free time because there's no like school and home separation. So it's pretty much just like you do your work at home and then you don't know when the work is done. You just keep going. So I couldn't go out with my friends and it was just pretty lonely in general.
Pretty much do everything. My children barely leave the house. I barely leave the house, which is strange because I'm an extrovert. I like to be involved in my community. I'm fearful and afraid all the time that when I do leave the house, I'm in Kroger and I was like, I touch this refrigerator and I'm like, okay, you touch the refrigerator, you touch the shelf, you touch the register, you touch the ATM. I'm keeping a documented record in my mind of what I touch, how close I am to somebody. My 8-year-old, I'm worried that he's like lost all knowledge of everything he's learned all second grade. I'm scared he's gonna go back and the teachers are gonna look at me and say, what were you doing? And I'm so tired of their unrealistic expectations that I can do all these assignments and work 8 hours and take care of 2 other children. You have to be out of your mind.
I finally, like in May, took my daughter to the dentist and she was getting her braces removed because we were supposed to get them removed in February. So we waited till May. And sure enough, we get a phone call that the girl who took off her braces tested positive. So I was so upset, I was scared. So we got tested and everything came back negative, but just waiting for that, having her to go through that, like the house going through that, it was scary. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to the dentist, we're not going to the doctor, all that can wait. Me and my girls were involved in an accident, and because of the orthodontist and what happened there, I just kind of, I didn't go to I didn't take them to the doctor. And our airbags popped out and everything. So it was just like, do I risk our life or do I go check our muscles out? I knew that I probably needed to see a doctor.
Art and I were planning on getting married, but with the onset of COVID, we realized we were not going to get married in the big space that we had planned. So we got a much smaller, as opposed to like a 100-person wedding, down to 6 people, if that, something like that. And and I didn't even have my family there, so that was the biggest shock.
COVID has really changed our lives, not only in the things that we do or like to do, I think it has impacted a lot of people emotionally, mentally, psychologically. It's just been, nobody expected this, obviously. We never thought we'd be we figured, hey, maybe this will end in a few months, but it looks like it's gonna be a while until. And then people say, you know, oh, things get back normal. Normal? What? This is normal now. Like, you know, we don't know. We don't know. So, no, I guess we just take it one day at a time.
All the light arriving. Who is on your side? All the ships arising on the will of the tide. And then I heard the voice and had no choice but to listen. And it spoke of the past and said at last, let go. Almost done. Let go, hold